Our top story this hour, peace spreading on the Korean peninsula. On Monday, the North and South started the process of removing landmines located along the border, which splits the Korean people into two separate nations. The so-called demilitarized zone established along the 38th parallel is a bit of a misnomer, as the border has been heavily militarized since the end of the Korean War, which you may recall never actually ended, as no formal peace treaty was signed. Negotiating such an agreement is a goal shared by governments on both sides of the border. In September, Korean leaders Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in signed a peace agreement committing Seoul and Pyongyang to realizing that objective, leading Moon to declare, quote, "The era of no war has started." North Korea is pursuing peace as one people, undivided. The United States has been sidelined in this process. However, last week, the Trump administration announced Secretary of State Mike Pompeo will travel to Pyongyang later this month in an effort to schedule a second summit between Kim and President Donald Trump. Speaking at a rally of his supporters in West Virginia over the weekend, Trump said he and Kim, quote, fell in love throughout the negotiation process.
I was really being tough, and so was he. And we would go back and forth, and then we fell in love, okay? No, really. He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters. We fell in love.
The removal of landmines from the 38th parallel marks an important step for Korea in the direction of unity. I traveled to South Korea last year to report on the struggle for peace on the peninsula. While there, I traveled to the city of Imjinggak, which is just a few meters away from the 38th parallel. The threat of war could not be more apparent back at Imjinggak, near the border which has separated Korea since the end of World War II. For a so-called demilitarized zone, the presence of the military is palpable as the U.S. and South Korea rehearse their war against the North just a few miles away. Still, it's mostly civilians who visit here, bust in on tours from around the country. A divided people gather at Imjinggak to gaze across the sweeping hills at their distant neighbors, once their fellow countrymen. It's also here where one meets Koreans like this man who know not just the threat of war, but war as reality, having battled their brothers already once before. He was 18 years old when the war broke out and agreed to speak with me about his memories. I asked him when he first heard the news of the war and how it made him feel.
Too much? Too much?
Silence.
Too much? It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay.
He looked at me with tears in his eyes, in shock, unable to respond. His relatives would eventually explain to me he was the only member of his family at the time south of the 38th parallel. Whether or not his parents or siblings survived the fire and fury brought by the United States north of the border remains a mystery. With Korea in question, we turn to RT correspondent Caleb Maupin for his analysis. All right, Caleb, removing landmines is a huge step Korea is taking following last month's Inter-Korea summit in Panmunjom. What other steps did both leaders agree to take?
Well, we're seeing some very promising signs. We're seeing the bodies of soldiers from the South being returned. We're also seeing the fact that at this point a border liaison office is being set up to facilitate travel between the North and the South. Now, we've heard from Moon Jae-in that the two Koreas have actually agreed to end all hostile acts on land and sea. Now, at the same time, South Korea is stepping up its military and saying that they are not in any case disarming, and North Korea is not ready to give up their nuclear weapons. They say it's a denuclearization process. So steps are being taken, but people are wondering what exactly will happen next. This is a process.
In my intro, I described the United States as being sidelined at this stage in the process, which you've just laid out. Do you agree that Washington's kind of out of the loop here? And if not, what role, if any, does the United States have at this point?
Well, the key issue is modernization. North Korea very much wants to join the world economy. And we've seen President Moon Jae-in of the South offer to actually help modernize the railway systems of North Korea, help them start selling their coal on the international markets. But we have the UN sanctions that prevent that from being possible. And at this point, we have the United States arguing that UN sanctions cannot be lifted until there is complete nuclear disarmament from the North. And so, in a way, many people are looking at this and saying that this is kind of the United States acting as an impediment. Economics seems to be a primary motivating factor for this negotiation, but yet the USA is saying that no economic ties can be established between the North and the South until North Korea gives up its nuclear weapons. Now, we all know about how negotiations work. One side gives some, the other side gives some. That's generally how it's done. So people are wondering what exactly the role of the United States here. Are they being an impediment, essentially? But the other thing is that we remember that Donald Trump very much likes to be at the center of attention, and he very much likes a historic handshake. You know, there's talk of a second meeting between Kim and Trump. So people wonder what's going to happen next.
Right, and as North Korea said, Pyongyang will only move to denuclearize if the United States offers some concessions as well. So even if Trump wants to go ahead and offer some of those, do you believe the United States, for lack of a better term, deep state or overall military groups will allow for any sort of concessions?
I think there are a lot of different agendas within the White House. There are different forces that want different things. We heard a lot of conflicting statements in the lead up to the Singapore summit. We'll remember John Bolton was saying one thing, Mike Pompeo was saying one thing. There's a lot of different agendas there. But at the end of the day, it's pretty clear the United States wants North Korea to give up its nuclear weapons. However, the question is, are they going to realistically negotiate and negotiate in a way that will make that happen and North Korea will be willing to do it? That's the question. I think people are wondering about that. Economics, the ability of North Korea to trade with countries around the world, start doing business, that's kind of vital. And if they're not able to do that, if there's a demand for them to just completely denuclearize, right, it's not exactly realistic that they're going to just give up their nuclear weapons immediately.
Well, hopefully those in Washington making these decisions will figure that out soon enough. Caleb Maupin, RT International correspondent, thanks a lot.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.